it can be any combination of symptoms or no symptoms at all that are readily detectable by the patient.
So how do you know if your hip replacement could be involved in a lawsuit, and what do you do? We're going to find out right now in this episode of Ask the Lawyer. My guest is attorney George McLaughlin, who's based in Denver, but handles these kind of cases from all over the country. And I want to remind you right at the front, if you want to ask George any questions about your situation, go to askthelawyers.com, click the button up at the top that says Ask a Lawyer. It'll walk you right through the very simple process, or you can always call the phone number you'll see on the screen during our conversation. George, good to see you again. As always, thank you for helping us out.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
So we're talking in this instance about the Exactech hip replacement inserts. Tell me what the issue is going on here.
Well, Exactech is a medical device company. They make orthopedic devices, including hips and knees and ankles. But this issue is related to the Exactech hip. It's called the Connexion GXL Hip. And the problem is they're having issues with the polyethylene, the plastic liner that, if this is your hip joint, your acetabulum, there's a cup in there with a plastic liner, and then your femoral head, the metal ball or ceramic ball, goes in there, and they're having problems with that plastic or ceramic liner, which led to a letter that went out to the doctors telling them about this issue in June of last year, June of 2021, but also a recall of this product.
And what does the recall mean as far as people who have had hips replaced with this product?
Well, when you have a recall, it's done usually with the insistence of the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, but the company does the recall. But then it gets posted on the FDA website so that it's there for the whole world to see, and surgeons get notified of the recall. But what it means is that there's a problem that's been identified with the product that could result in a person having a problem or an injury. This one is called a Class 2 recall. But when you recall a product, what that does is it brings back from the distributors, the device representatives, the hospitals that have these devices in their inventory, on their shelves. It brings those devices off the shelf and sends them back to the company. But if it's already been implanted, it's too late. You don't go in and take it out just because it's been recalled, but now you've got to watch to see if you're going to have a problem that may lead to a surgery where the device is taken out and replaced.
So at this point, what is the manufacturer recommending that patients who have these products do?
The manufacturers sent a letter. It's called a Dear Doctor letter generically. It's actually titled Urgent Dear Health Care Professional Communication. And it's in red, Urgent Dear Healthcare Professional Communication. And then it's a 1.5-page letter to the doctors telling them about the problems and recommending that if they haven't seen their patient for several years' time, that they should have the patient come in and be assessed. They should have x-rays done. The doctors should take a close look to see if they may be having a problem with their liner from this Exactech hip. The problem is that they get excessive wear of the polyethylene, and then they get a condition called edge loading, where when your hip is rotating in the joint, it gets to the point where it hits the edge of the cup, and you can get excessive wear on the liner if you have this situation called edge loading, where your cup actually is being pressed with the metal of the head, and it can cause it to dislocate if it gets severe enough.
And what maybe are some things that patients should look out for that might give them, hey, I may be having a problem with my insert? Or is it pain? Is it clicking? What might be the issues?
It can be any number of things. Some people may not experience any symptoms at all, but their hip is still wearing and may wear excessively. Some people develop pain in the joint. Some people begin to hear a noise, a clicking. Some people tend to have a looseness, whereas the polyethylene liner wears away. your hip gets loose in there and kind of jiggles around a little bit. So it can be any combination of symptoms or no symptoms at all that are readily detectable by the patient.
There is some litigation. I know you've got a case against Exactech. Tell us a little bit about what this litigation is and who might be eligible.
Well, anybody that has an Exactech hip that the liner has failed and it's been removed and replaced, they've got a case. Most device manufacturers won't recognize a case having value if the part hasn't been removed and replaced. And understand, not all of these will fail. I mean, if you're not very active, an older person that spends their day playing bridge is much less likely to have a problem than somebody that is active, that goes about their normal activities and plays golf or walks a lot, whatever. The heavier you are, the more likely you are to have excessive wear. So not everyone's going to have a failure of these devices. But if you do, there are a few things you need to do. First, you always have to follow your doctor's advice. That's primary. Do what your doctor's recommending. If your doctor's recommending a revision surgery, a revision is remove and replace, you need to give that very serious consideration. I'm not a doctor and I don't give medical advice, but what my clients tell me, their doctors have told them, is once this is starting to go bad, it's not going to get better. And sooner or later, you're probably going to want to have it fixed with a revision surgery. Most people would say, well, let's do it sooner because you never know what the complications could be down the road. Get it fixed sooner rather than later. If you are going to have a revision surgery, you really should contact an attorney before the surgery so that letters can be written to the hospital asking the hospital to preserve the explanted parts. When they take out the parts, you don't want them thrown away. The doctor's not going to save them for you. That's not the surgeon's role. The surgeon takes it out and hands it off to someone in the OR. It'll go through pathology to be evaluated and then disposed of. You've got to write a letter asking it to be preserved. And most attorneys will do that for you, no charge, just to be sure that your hardware, your explanted devices get preserved. Then follow your doctor's advice after the surgery, but don't drag your feet in moving forward with your claim. There's no reason to delay. Once you've had an Exactech hip removed and replaced, save the hardware, get an attorney, and file your claim. You're not going to just be contacted by Exactech saying, gee, we heard you had a problem. What can we do to make it right? That's not how it goes. You're going to have to file a claim, file a lawsuit to get just compensation for what you've been through.
Do we have any idea how many devices might be affected with this, George?
Yeah, well, we do. There were, the recall had 89,050 devices identified as being subject to the recall. That means they were distributed in the U.S. They were distributed in the United States. What that means is they were put out there for implantation. From my experience doing failed hip cases for now more than 10 years, distributed means most of them were probably implanted. They don't sit around for years and years and years in inventory. These things are constantly being produced and distributed, and then they get implanted within a relatively short time. So I don't know exactly how many have been implanted. We'd have to get numbers from the company as to how many were returned. Then you do the math and you can figure out how many. But there were thousands of these implanted around the country.
Lots of really interesting and helpful information, George. As always, thank you for making some time to answer our questions.
Thank you, Rob.
That's it for this episode of Ask the Lawyer. My guest has been attorney George McLaughlin. Remember, if you want to contact George about your situation and ask questions of your own, go to AskTheLawyers.com. Click the button at the top that says Ask a Lawyer, and it'll walk you right through the process. Or you can call the phone number on the screen while we had our conversation. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Rob Rosenthal with Ask the Lawyers.